So, a serial killer. He was in fact captured because women were indeed murdered, right? Unsolved cold cases. They pointed back to a truck driver. The photo of the male that was just up above my head. Like, subscribe, ID in the Discovery Channel. Yes, ID in the Discovery Channel. The links are provided below. Get that Discovery Go app as well as that ID Go app. You might want to get those two things combined and make them into one. And I'm a Discovery influencer. That's indeed a fact. So, a serial killer captured in connection to women who were murdered in Wyoming and Tennessee. Such involving cold cases, once again, cold cases. Clark Perry Baldwin was the male that was in the photo up above my head, right? Him being the suspect. Baldwin was a truck driver during his murderous stints. So it was DNA in which linked Baldwin to the murders of the women in both Tennessee and Wyoming. The unresolved cold cases are 3 decades old. They're 3 decades old cases, right? Which led to law enforcement reinvestigating each cold case. Truck drivers, when it comes to that sort of thing, you really want to be, that's not saying them completely, because we're responsible for our own lives. Each individual is, right? But you never know. Male, it could be a female. It could be either one. Male, female, in between, right? That could kill you. Once again, not all truck drivers are the same, but you do, in fact, have people that go into that industry because they know that women, in fact, surround certain truck stops, right? You do, in fact, have, once again, I'm not saying all, there's various people, right? Upright citizens that go into that field, that lane of work, being a truck driver, right? And yet you do have males that specifically go into the lane of driving tractor trailers just so that they can bed women, right? In a sense, prostitutes and all the rest, prostitution and all the rest, right? This so happened to be one of those type of individuals. So Baldwin, of 58 years old, was taken into custody on May 6th. He was charged with 2 counts of first-degree murder, and the murder he was charged for is for killing a 32-year-old pregnant woman and the baby in her womb. All took place back in 1991. The second victim was Pamela Rose Ulrich McCall. Did you get that? She has a long name. Pamela Rose Ulrich McCall. She too was pregnant upon being murdered. She was found strangled and her body laid in the woods. Before being murdered, she was last seen entering a tractor trailer. A truck, yes, right? Before being killed, as she entered the tractor trailer, she was seen getting into a tractor trailer, right? Tennessee is the location of where her body was found. So two of those females, in fact, were pregnant. Let me go back right quick. She was hitchhiking. I'm sorry about that. She was indeed hitchhiking. You gotta be careful and watchful of that sort of thing. I'm leery about hitchhiking as well as hitchhikers, right? This could have pointed either way and in either direction, as in he could have been an innocent victim and say she could have killed him, being a hitchhiker. It points either way, right? And so once again, she was a second victim, her being strangled and her body laid in the woods, right? Let me skip through right quick. So the first victim I named, she was indeed pregnant, and then the second victim I named, let me skip through once again. The cold case remained rested, and that's when detectives had DNA evidence sent to a database back in 2019. DNA matched 2 women who haven't been identified, who were both murdered. They were murdered in Wyoming, being a location. it was back. So the body of discovery, it was back in 1992 when a new body identified as a female was found strangled to death. Her body was found by a female truck driver in Wyoming. This story is kind of, it seemed like it's zigzagging, doesn't it? Where I'm going first and I'm going, yeah. So a month or so after the female's body was found, if there's any issue, you can always rewind the video, as in go back to the beginning, the opening, right? Refresh your mind. So a month or so after the female's body was found, the one I just mentioned, then remains of a pregnant woman was found by Wyoming Department of Transportation. Her body was found somewhat mummified upon being discovered. Mummified, right? Investigators sensed a male was responsible for the murders since the murders were so similar to one another. Investigators too sensed a truck driver committed the murders. So they already, once they did their investigation, they were able to pinpoint, well, this seemed like it was more than likely a male and more than likely a truck driver. DNA matched the suspect, and that DNA was discovered at the crime scenes. Did you get that? DNA matched the suspect, and that DNA was discovered at the crime scenes. A relative to the suspect had placed their DNA into a genealogy website, right? And that too is what led investigators to investigate the suspect even more. Blood type and all the rest, right? Connection of that. You taking your blood, right? There's ways to upload it to a genealogy website, right? And yeah, the tracing back of that sort of thing, right? So that helped investigators to investigate the suspect even more. They investigated his background to try to pin down if he was the guy they were looking for. Law enforcement swabbed items such as the shopping cart in Walmart and other items he laid his hands upon in Walmart. They did a swab to try to match the seat, right? So a garbage bag was found, right? Let me go back to that. A garbage was found carrying DNA of Baldwin, the suspect, the garbage bag. It was thrown away. It matched the DNA found at 3 murder scenes. So all that is pinning to him. It's just pinning the crime on him, right? All crimes which took place. So Baldwin is to face charges for 2 other Wyoming murders. Questions and investigators. It's believed that the suspect would have innocent women travel with him. I mentioned that in the opening of my video, right? It's believed that the suspect would have innocent women travel with him. He would then rape them and kill them. Those women being the types who frequented truck stops. They would frequent truck stops. So you may or may not consider them prostitutes or into prostitution, but they were into something. They might not have been. I'm saying they may have been or they might not have been, depending on what they chose to consider themselves. I might say, well, that was prostitution, right? For the record, but they might in fact say, well, that's not me. I'm not a prostitute. I just hang out at trucker stops. Right. So a suspect in more murders as a long haul driver during the 1980s and the 1990s, Baldwin, may have murdered even more women. The women I named already before I said what I just said is coming out even more in detail, that even he could have murdered various women during the time of the 1980s and the 1990s while he was a long haul driver. Go back in time. He just recently got captured, right? That's a long time. Consider all the people, as in all the females that have went missing, right? Or murders, or how you see missing persons, and as women or young girls, young adults, right? For him to be a driver back in the 1980s and the 1990s, and he just recently been captured, right? That's a long time. That's a long span. Remember, he was driving nationally, right? Long haul, right? You being a trucker, that's to say you have drove across various states. That's what investigators are saying. More than likely, he committed more murders, murdering more women, right? So every time I think of that, I will more than likely think, when I see the flyers of missing persons of young girls and stuff from back in the 80s and 90s, his face is going to come to my mind. Because any one of them women could have been one of his victims. And he's not the only one, right? Yeah, so investigators investigating murders of that time period back in the 80s and the 90s time period to see if Baldwin is and was responsible back then. That's a long time. That's a lot, because if you consider how often truckers travel anyway, some of these truckers be on the road 7 days a week. It depends on their schedule, right? Whether they choose to take off, right? However they have everything set up, right? Look at how many women in a weekly basis. If he's a full, complete, blown serial killer, that's what he is, right? Is to consider in your mind, your viewers, who all he done killed. On a weekly basis, I'm saying. Consider that in your mind, right? Many of those murders which happened in the 80s and 90s were, again, unsolved cases. So there's blood on his hands that we won't know probably in the years to come. Yeah. Baldwin is in jail at the Black Hawk County Jail. Location is Iowa, and he will be transported to Tennessee and then Wyoming. He's being held without bail. That's amazing in itself. I'm saying it's terrifying. The 80s and the 90s. To go back that far, you even had young children missing, then you don't know, right? Because to be at a truck stop like that is to say, even he could have kidnapped somebody's child. You at a truck stop, remember, truck stop is the truck stop, as in you got rest stops and all the rest. Remember, rest stops, truck stops, and all that combined. Things have changed, right? Not completely right. There's more security nowadays. But even some of that stuff was combined, as in a rest stop and the truck stop combined, even back in the 80s and the 90s. I think it was enough for even a child to get out and then go missing, a young female or young boy or whatever, right? And this man taking one of them. I'm able to see that. I don't think his victims may have been just women. They may have been missing kids as well. You don't know, right? People need to think about stuff like that. What come to my mind is, if it was, I mean, a grown man can easily swoop up a child and run across a parking lot with the child, covering the child's mouth, right? You would have to think in depth on even that. Well, how did he get a child, if that was ever a case, right? Because, see, a grown woman will get in his truck, or got in his truck more than likely willingly. But I'm thinking it would be, too, just as easy for him to swoop up a child, or to lure a child into his truck, right? Male or female, right? People should consider that sort of thing, I'm thinking. May or may not be, right? But just think about that for missing people that go missing, and men such as this, serial killers, and the grabbing up and swooping people. So we're on investigationdiscovery.com. The ID logo stands in the far left corner. Live now. Disappeared season 9. New episodes. To gain access is to provide who you're subscribed to, you would in fact have access right through here, right? It's lock, pad, down, lock. That's the only way you're going to get access to that, gain access. Unlock episodes. Receiving an audio to receive an audio visual preview is a click the play button. You would in fact receive a audio visual preview with that sort of thing. Sound and play. Recommended for you. Shouts out to Lieutenant Joe Kenda as well as Paula. ID Go original series. I always try to make sure that I'm not going too fast on the screen. I kind of mess up from time to time. I kind of scroll down too quickly, right? I'm trying to not do that. So, as I gotta learn how to pace on even that sort of thing. Learning how to scroll down slow, because to note that you're the viewers watching. I just have a quick, see how I'm typing real quick, right? I do everything on the screen like that quick, so it just becomes a habit of, let me just scroll down real quick, and then I'm forgetting, okay, slow down a bit. Don't move so quick. You don't want to make anybody dizzy. Somebody older than me might be watching, right? Still scrolling back up. But see, what's interesting, because I'm so much more younger, right? The younger generation, to watch somebody my age, say if I do this quickly scrolling, older people ain't gonna take that too much. They'll get tired of, well, I'm getting tired of seeing the stuff that you on both of your YouTube accounts because you scroll too fast, right? But somebody my age probably wouldn't. They'd be like, whatever, right? They'll probably just say whatever, right? Yeah, or look away or something like that. But yeah, let me work on my scroll up and down process. It should be subconsciously there to scroll slow, but yeah, sometimes, you know, you kind of forget. So let me know, dear viewers, what you feel about the video. May you enjoy your day. I will indeed enjoy mine. May all be well and swell. Summer is on the way. Everybody's out of quarantine. That's a good thing, finally. So